Welcome to Convince Me. We are back for week 3. This is the top of the power hour, the only NFL pregame show with all the stuff you care about and none of the stuff you don't. I am Chad Millman. Over the next 30 minutes, my Action Network buddies, the red hot Sean Koerner, Simon Hunter, and Chris Raybon will try to convince me what props, what sides, what totals, what Sunday night plays I should make for the entire NFL slate. Plus, we've got Evan Abrams with market reports and trends that make you sound smarter than all your friends. We also welcome Dr. Nick Giffen, the host of Bet What Happens Live, who will take us through the latest need to know from our luck rankings. At the bottom half of the hour, don't forget, Gilles Gallant, Brian Matthews will preview the best touchdown props on the board today on the Touchdown Show. Before we begin, a reminder, like this video and subscribe to the Action Network YouTube page. Also, all the picks, all the trends, all the data, all the research we discuss today available in the award-winning Action Network app. Before we get into the picks, let's take a look at the season-long leaderboard for our experts after week 2. I mean, I don't think this really reflects how hot Sean Koerner has been. Everyone can see the scores here. But Sean Koerner has won 16 straight bets across the board in the last couple of weeks. These leaderboards right now, no joke, people. It's for real. Everything Sean Koerner does is tracked in the Action Network app. All I got to say is good luck to Simon. Good luck to Raybon trying to convince me to do anything other than tail Koerner. No pressure. No pressure, Koerner. Take us into your...
You better not mush me, Chad. Please don't.
Listen, what have I said? I don't even want to talk to you about this, but we're handling it like such amateurs, throwing up, pop-ups in the app and talking about it on every show. And then Gifford, our producer, is talking about it in the pre-show, and Simon is talking about it in the pre-show. I don't have a choice but to mention it at this point. We're freaking selling it, man. So I'm just here for the ride at this point. Tell me what I'm going to bet, and then we can have Simon and Chris do their thing.
Okay, well, this is actually one of my favorite sack props ever. I gave it out yesterday at -125. You can get it at -114 right now at FanDuel. It's Rashan Gary of the Packers to record a sack, and they actually reward it. If he gets a half sack, it's graded as a yes. So that's important to note. But he's off to a bit of a slow start this year. He's only generated a pressure on 11% of his pass rush snaps. However, I do expect him to bounce back closer to his 17% clip last year. And if you look at his 2 matchups, to open the season, it's been brutal. He's had to face off against Lane Johnson of the Eagles in week 1, Braden Smith of the Colts in week 2. Those two tackles allowed 3 sacks all of last season. So it's actually incredible. He has a sack on the season. That I think he's done great. But today he gets to face off against right tackle Nicholas Petit Frere, who's allowed a league high 11 pressures on the season. So I have Gary projected for 5 pressures. Will Levis has taken a sack on 22% of pressures in his career. So I have Gary getting a sack around 63% of the time of day. You can get it at minus 114. Like I said, this is one of my favorite sack props of all time.
All time. Don't forget, Koerner is the guy who, before the season started, liked Aiden Hutchinson at 14-1 to lead the league in sacks. The guy who said in our first week's show said, take Aiden Hutchinson to get a sack. And eventually, the second to last play of the game, he got a sack. All right. Simon, you can tell me what you want to tell me, but we know which way this is going. Do it for the fans. Do it for the fans. They might want to hear what you have to say, and they might want to bet everything that we're talking about.
We'll see, Chad. Maybe I'll convince you. Let's go with DJ Moore over 62.5 receiving yards. I know this one's close to your heart. My view of it is his first game, he went up against Tennessee and Snead in one of the best coverage defenses in football, right? We kind of respect Tennessee more as the season goes along. We were realizing they're a good defense. Same goes for Houston. That was a tough matchup for him. So in both those games, he was held under 60 yards, Chad, but he had 18 targets. So, clearly Williams is looking for him. He's trying to pass it to him. It just hasn't connected. Now comes the Colts, right? They're the 28th rated defense, in my opinion. They're secondary. And, we've seen it time and time again through 2 games. You can beat them in the air, right? This Colts secondary is not that good. So this matchup finally plays into what DJ Moore does so great, right? If you can get him just on the right slant route, he can take it 60, 70 yards. Like, the talent's there. He just really has an opportunity this season. So I know the target's going to be there. I know he's going to get some catches. I think he finally breaks the 62 number against a bad Colts defense. So I'm going to buy low on him, get a low total. I see him going off in this game. So I love this number so much for DJ Moore, especially I even talk about all the injuries that they have to these wide receivers right now on this Bears team. He's really the only healthy guy, fully go, their number 1 receiver. So love this matchup for DJ Moore.
I actually like it too. There's a couple factors. Number one, and we're going to preview this, or I'm foreshadowing something for later in the show that Dr. Nick is going to talk about with Caleb Williams that also plays into this. But remember last week against the Texans, DJ Moore showed a little bit of frustration after a incomplete pass in a game the Bears were struggling in. And he went to the sideline. It became something a little bit in Chicago media this week where he had to explain himself. Like when that happens, quarterbacks and receivers, they immediately want to get on the same page and show everybody that everything's fine and that they support each other and that they love each other. I like what you're talking about here, Simon. Raybon, give me something gross.
Let's go Javonte Williams under 11.5 carries. He hasn't hit this over all year. He's had 11 and 8, and he's averaging just 2.1 yards a carry. And Sean Payton, he's been switching things up from week to week when things don't work in this Bronco offense. So if you remember, week 1, Joel McLaughlin, he was kind of the talk, and they were going to get him more touches, and he got 15 touches, but didn't really do anything with them. So the next week, he has 3 touches. Now Javonte Williams didn't do anything really these first 2 weeks, and even going back to last year, he just has been completely inefficient. He's actually under 11.5 carries in 4 of his last 5 games, dating back to last year. I just don't think he really ever fully recovered from that injury. So I think Sean Payton's going to try to keep him a little fresher or just get Tyler Beatty more work. I think they elevated him today. So I think there's going to be like a 3-way committee in this backfield. And anytime you have that, there's just a lot of variance, and it's easy to go under these carry props. And then you have game script potentially on top of that. So give me under 11.5 carries for Javonte Williams.
Like it. Like, as much as people have talked about Bo Nix and his struggles and not getting the ball into the end zone, he's not getting any help from his running game. I mean, they have been horrible on the ground, the Broncos have. So I like this one too. But guys, of course I'm going with Rashan Gary. and to get a sack in this game. And the fact that juices come down, Raybon, I hate paying big prices. So I'm getting a Koerner prop and lower juice. That's a no-brainer. Let's talk about some spreads. Koerner, fire away.
All right, I'm going to try to throw you off my scent a bit with a gross underdog. As you can tell by my hat, I'm going with the Dolphins plus 4.5 today. The Dolphins will be without Tua, which is, no doubt a pretty big downgrade going to Skylar Thompson here. But he made a handful of starts for Tua in the past, including that wild card game we all got to watch together in New York, where they nearly upset the Bills in Buffalo. So he has enough experience here where we kind of know what to expect. And he still has a handful of talented weapons in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane at his disposal. So we might not see this offense drop off too much. Plus, the Seahawks defense is dealing with some injuries. Uchenna Nwosu is still out. Linebacker Jerome Baker has been ruled out. So they're not quite at full strength right now. And their offense is going to be without Kenneth Walker again this week. And while I love Zach Charbonnet as a talent, he just hasn't been as efficient as a workhorse back. So they could, have a drop off there in the run game. But according to Next Gen Stats, Geno Smith has faced the quickest average time to pressure on the season, and the Dolphins defense has averaged the fastest time to pressure on the season. So he might face a ton of quick pressure here. Could be a recipe for disaster. He's struggled in facing pressure this year. He ranks 23rd in EPA per dropback on the season. So also, this is a luck ranking game. The Dolphins have the third biggest luck gap in our luck rankings this week. So I think this is just a game where I think the market's maybe overreacting to the QB drop off here. I think the offense has enough firepower to be just fine. And I expect, the most likely outcome going to be the Seahawks winning by 3 here. So I like the fact that we're getting 4.5.
Well, look, Seahawks 2 games, 2 pushes so far. They can't push on 4.5. So we're getting a little bit of a benefit there. The only thing that worries me about this game, you're just not getting the best of the number, right? This number has dropped considerably over the past 5 days. I know Raybon and Stuckey talked about this in their Sunday 6-pack on the Action Network pod. It's the right side for sure. Another factor, the Seahawks offensive line, a lot of injuries that contributes to the time to pressure for Geno. Another offensive line injury that was reported last night. Their right tackle not going to be playing. All right, Simon, what do you got?
Jack, going the Vikings plus 1.5, plus 2 if you shop around. This is really not so much about Sam Darnold. I know he's getting all the love right now. It's more so about Brian Flores and this defense, right? I think they've really turned a page here. They kind of found their identity with this defense, and it's 2 years, right? He coached there last year. They got rid of a couple of players, brought guys in that he preferred, and it's really, really worked out for him. Through 2 games, his defense right now is 4th in EPA per play, 2nd in total QB pressures, 1st in sacks, and they've only allowed 1 touchdown pass and then 3 interceptions. So you could say, well, look who they played. I mean, same can be said about a lot of teams, right? Early in the year here, it's what can you do about the teams in front of you? Like, they only can beat who they play. So CJ is a great test for them. We've seen CJ kind of struggle in this situation, right? We've seen him not play as well on the road as a favorite. In his career, he's 3-7 straight up as a favorite, 3-7 against the spread. He's 0-2 this season against the spread as a favorite. So we see that the Houston team, who was a darling coming into the season, they've been a little overvalued, right, Chad? So the public, they don't care. They're going to keep betting this number. We've seen it, right? 70% of the money, over 75% of the bets right now has come in on this Houston team. This number has gone down from, Chad, we talked at Sunday night, 3.5 all the way down to 1.5, 2 now. So clearly the public is happy. They're getting good value in this number, and the professionals think it's not low enough. So I agree with them. I think this should be closer to a pick. I'll take the value on this Vikings team and at home with this defense against this Houston team.
Wow. This one just feels scarier to me. Forget about we're not getting even close to the best of the number. Less than 6 days ago, this number was a field goal plus. Even 24 hours ago, it was 2.5. Now money continues to come in. It's at 1.5. I'm also a little bit worried, like, we're 2 weeks in. What are we seeing from Sam Darnold as defenses continue to see more of him on film? Because he has not traditionally been very good. So that worries me a little bit. I don't want to overcorrect on the Vikings yet. Raybon, give me something else. So far I got Sam Darnold and Skylar Thompson.
Well, Chad, I'm going Denver plus 6.5. So can I interest you in some Bo Nix going against a team that covered the spread by double digits in both of its games in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? I just think this is a letdown spot for the Bucs. If you look back in week 3, teams that are averaging an against the spread margin of 10 or more, they're just 33 and 50 against the spread, 40% over the last 20 years. You look at all of Tampa Bay's metrics, everything is lucky for them. Like Baker Mayfield actually has a higher turnover worthy play rate than Bo Nix, but Nix has 4 picks and no touchdowns. And Baker, it's the opposite with him. This is a luck ranking game. This is actually one of the biggest luck differentials of all time that we've had. Tampa Bay's number 2. They're already the second luckiest team. And Denver is dead last in luck. And when that happens, you're getting over a 70% against the spread hit rate. It's rare, but even if you expand the sample, you're well over 60%. And Sean Payton, I think, again, he's going to continue to kind of mold this team. He's not going to just sit back and let them do the same thing week after week. So I think they'll switch it up. And, Tampa Bay, they've been riding hot. They won that playoff game last year. Now they come out and they knock off Detroit. These teams only stay hot for so long before they start coming down to earth. So I got to go with Denver here, plus 6.5. Sean Payton is 69% against the spread on the road off a loss, 29-13. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah, I love the Broncos here. I can't believe I would not take Sean Koerner and his bet in this matchup, but I've loved the Broncos all week. Simon knows I have loved the Broncos all week. We have talked about it on the favorites nonstop. My biggest fear with the Broncos all week had been in that 6.5, 6.5, 6. It finally ticked up 6.5 across the board late last night, early this morning. The wise guys are buying in at the 6.5. You can see in the Action Network app, I actually paid a little bit extra. I bought half a point. I bet it at +7 because the other thing that worries me is Bo Nix having a backdoor cover and at least give me a shot for a push when this team is down by 2 touchdowns against the Tampa Bay Bucks. But I am taking the Broncos at +6.5. I mentioned the app. We all love to fade the public. Let's take a look at where the majority of betting tickets are. You've heard the guys mention that a couple of times now. This is all in the Action Network app. For those who are new, the number of tickets generally represents who the public likes. The money percentages, also available in the app, indicate who the professionals like. Raybon just talked about it. We've got 79% of the tickets on Tampa Bay. That indicates a huge amount of tickets coming in from the public on the Bucs. Also, the Raiders getting a ton of love against the Panthers. We don't talk about the Panthers because they've burned us, at least not publicly. But I can tell you right now, the Panthers are the side that wise guys are on. The Panthers are the side that at least I know 1 or 2 of the people on this show are on. Raybon talked about it on Sunday Six Pack with Stuckey as well. And then the 49ers and the Giants, 70+% of the tickets on the Niners in a very strange matchup where it just feels like a battle of attrition. All right. Director of Research, Evan Abrams, you're going to make us all smarter, hopefully make us feel a little bit better about the bets we're making today.
I'll try. But for what it's worth, public sides this year via Action Network data, 12, 20, and 1 against the spread early in the season. So
that's a flip, by the way, right?
Yeah.
Because last year, for the first time in 20 years, the public was ROI positive betting.
Yeah. Absolutely correct. And now it's been a little bit of a flip early on, but Jets did cover as a public side on Thursday Night Football. So we'll see. But let's continue with the market for a second. So as of now, through 3 weeks of NFL football, we haven't seen a double-digit favorite in the NFL. The closest we've seen was the Bengals New England game. There was a few close calls in that Ravens Raiders game, but for the first time in history, no double-digit favorites through the first 3 weeks of the season, and even more so, the average line for favorites through 3 weeks right now is 4.1. That is the lowest for any first 3 weeks since 1983. So really, really tight lines. And we will talk about another tight line right now, which is Chargers Steelers. So that line is actually up to 3. And this is shaping to be the first game Jim Harbaugh will be an underdog in the NFL since December 2014. Colin Kaepernick against Russell Wilson. Now, Harbaugh is 9-8 straight up as a dog in the NFL since 1990, which is the wild card era. Here is a list of coaches above 500 straight up as a dog with at least 17 games coached under that circumstance. Matt LaFleur at 19-15 at 34 games, and Mike Tomlin 50-49 at 99 games. That's the list. And LaFleur is a dog today as well. So both showing up. And I will say this, Raybon's going to talk about maybe this Chargers Steelers over under. Well, it's down to 34.5 now. We haven't seen a game close at 35 or less in the first 3 weeks since 2010. Bucks Steelers, that was Charlie Batch and Josh Freeman. So been a long time coming. And I'll give you one just blanketed trend. Supposed to back winless against the spread dogs. Supposed to bet the worst of the worst. So they are 102, 66-2, 61% against the spread since 2015, and 56% last 20 years. That's the Giants, the Panthers, the Dolphins, thank you, Sean, and the Rams today. So bet the worst of the worst, 61% since 2015. We'll see how it works.
We're just getting back to our roots. We're going so ugly. It's so impossible to love these teams, yet that's exactly what we're doing. I got to tell you, that Steelers game, Evan, feels very trappy. Like everything about it screams fade the Steelers in this spot. Tomlin as a favorite, so much attention. Everyone thinking Justin Fields is doing okay. He makes 1 or 2 mistakes and all of a sudden they're 0-2. Like even if Justin Herbert is hampered, that game feels dicey to me.
Yeah, and from a news perspective, he literally just walked onto the field. So we're going to see shortly what's going on.
Dun, 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 dun. Breaking news, Justin Herbert just walked onto the field in Pittsburgh. All right, listen, we've mentioned it. You can say I'm mushing him, but we're all just here trying to make a buck. We're celebrating Koerner's 16 straight winners, his 14-0 record in week 2. We're going to help give everyone a piece of the action as he heads into week 3 today. A special offer for new pro subscribers. Head over to actionnetwork.com/pro. Use the promo code PERFECT for $20 off the annual subscription price. Action Pro subscribers get instant notifications every time Sean makes a bet, and also get access to all of his player prop projections for every NFL game every single week. Once again, that's $20 off an annual subscription at actionnetwork.com/pro with the promo code PERFECT. I can't even believe we're tempting fate like this. Koerner, why would we do this? It's like talking to Clayton Kershaw in the middle of a perfect game. Well, what is this about? I will say, because I'm a subscriber, I get the alerts when you make a pick, and my whole house had to stop yesterday. There was chaos in my house late afternoon yesterday because my wife was trying to get out of the house. My kid was trying to get out of the house. Everyone's trying to talk to me. Your bets came in right before prop drop, right during prop drop. Watch it on YouTube. And I had to shut everything down just so I could go and make my bets and try to get the best of the number based on what you were saying. Let's get to it, Mr. Perfect. It's not even me doing it at this point. Let's talk about some totals.
Well, I'm going to do something I normally don't do. I'm going to give you an over in a game with a fairly high total. And I've just been rolling with my numbers in my gut, so I'm going to keep that going here. Ravens Cowboys over 47.5. This is a week where we could see scoring go up. I know Nick has mentioned how our expected scores have been much higher than actual scoring so far. So we're expecting some positive regression just in terms of scoring. But this is a matchup where when I was doing player projections for this, just so many, boxes were being checked. I think this is going to be a high scoring game because, the Cowboys defense has struggled against the run this year. They ranked 31st in DVOA against the run. Not ideal when you're going up against Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And the Ravens have been using 12 personnel, 2 tight ends a lot this year at the highest rate, actually, in order to get both, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely on the field at the same time. they can really create some mismatches with, the best tight end duo in the league. And, most teams have played nickel against Ravens when they've used this formation. But Dallas has used base at a league high 96% of the time when facing two tight end sets. And Dallas has allowed a league high 7.2 yards a play on the season out of base. So we could see the Ravens offense really start clicking in this game. And on the other side, their defense has really struggled this year. They saw, a ton of turnover with the coaching staff, including defensive coordinator Mike McDonald, now with Seattle. And they've generated pressure at the sixth lowest rate. That's been one of the biggest weaknesses this year. So Dak, when not facing pressure, really pushes the ball downfield. So I think we'll see Dallas offense be really aggressive here. And, he and CeeDee Lamb haven't been on the same page over the first 2 weeks. But that was kind of expected with CeeDee, missing all of training camp due to his holdout. So I think they get going here. And they get back Jake Ferguson, their tight end, who's, their number 2 target in this offense. So I think the Cowboys offense will kind of get out of their funk here. The Ravens offense will keep rolling here. So I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. I had this projected closer to 49.5. So love getting over here at 47.5.
All right. I don't mind your logic. A lot of sentiment around the betting community about the Ravens being the side here and this Cowboys defense being truly dreadful and lacking any depth. So, Simon, what do you got?
Chad, going with the highest total under. Give me this Detroit, Arizona 51.5 under. And it's simply just a play on these totals have just been too high for a lot of these games, right? Whenever it's over a 50 now, I immediately look towards the under. And luckily, thanks to my man Evan, I got some numbers that back it up, right? Totals of 50 plus with Dan Campbell on the lines. They're 10-5 to the under, going under by a total of 3.9 points per game. In the last 2 seasons, totals of 50 plus. They are 13-2 to the under. So we've just seen time again, right? These refs, to me, they're the biggest thing with these unders going under. When teams get these first downs, how many times have we got the callback, right? Guy lined up wrong. Ineligible man downfield. It's just never ending this season with these refs pulling these games back, and it kills drives. So we know the Lions struggled last week in the red zone. I don't see them being as bad as that, right? I don't see them going 1 for 7 in the red zone. But on the flip side, I can't see Arizona being as successful as they were against that Rams team last week. Detroit's defense is actually much improved than they were just last year. I think their secondary is better. The D-line's gotten better. So I think this game is going to go back to a little bit of Detroit's going back to the personality of run first, right? They know they have the guys up front. Arizona does not have the guys up front to stop the run. So to me, this kind of plays out of Detroit running the ball control. On the flip side, Arizona, I think they want to run the ball as well, right? They want to ball control as well, just because they want to keep Detroit's offense off the field. So to me, it kind of is a perfect storm of an under of 51.5. Now, I know, Chad, you're a stickler for the best of the number. So yes, 6 days ago, this was 52.5. I don't think it's that big of a deal now. That's 51.5. I think you're still getting good value as long as it's still above 51.5, which is such a key number. I love this under.
Yeah, you're still getting over a key number in the total. And I actually like this play too a lot. I feel like Dan Campbell and that Lions staff, they want to get back to what they know the Lions are great at, which is being physically dominant. And last week, the ball was in Jared Goff's hands too often. They got a little too cute, and it cost them, right? Like, he's the reason they lost that game. He's the reason they only had 1 touchdown in 7 attempts in the red zone. So I like the idea here that it's going to be a little bit slower, and I like fading a really high total. Raybon, talk to me.
Let's go disgusting with the Chargers and the Steelers under 34.5. These are the top two of the top 3 defenses in EPA per play. The Chargers are number 1 and the Steelers are number 3. And now you have a banged up Justin Herbert who's going to start. The Chargers have already been extremely run heavy, as have the Steelers. Neither one of these teams, I think, is going to be interested in testing the other's defense too many times down the field. And if you look at the average scores for these teams, the Chargers average score combined 30.5 over the first 2 weeks of the season, and the Steelers 23.5. So when you see something that low, it's, this is not a total we see very often, but under 37 or less in an outdoor game over the last 10 years, 37-14 to the under, 73%. So these low totals, actually can't be set low enough because they're just out of the like 2 standard deviation realm of the model. So it just breaks the model. So give me the Chargers and the Steelers under 34.5.
What other NFL pregame show is going to give you 2 standard deviation when we're breaking down games? Go get that on one of those big fancy networks. You're not going to get that. You can get that here, though. That's what you get watching Convince Me. And I love your 2 standard deviation. I'm going to go with the Lions and the Cardinals. The other thing that Simon mentioned, these games have become excruciating to watch the first 2 weeks. All these penalties, all these callbacks. And by the way, 46% of those penalties, more than 400 penalties called in the first 2 weeks of the season. That's more than any season since 2020. 46% of these penalties, offensive line penalties. We're talking about holdings. We're talking about false starts. We're talking about ineligible player in the backfield, which is what they are calling with these offensive linemen when their helmet is not at the midline of the center. People still getting used to that. It's become really frustrating to watch. It's slowing down the game, and I think it's making teams lose momentum and impacting scoring. All right, I'm going with the Cardinals and the Lions. It is time for the luck rankings. I love the luck rankings. A few of the matchups that you need to know about. Broncos have been the unluckiest. We talked about that with Raybon, unluckiest team in the NFL this year, going against the Bucs, who have been the second luckiest team. It's a huge 30-place luck difference. The Jags have been unlucky this year, going up against Josh Allen. The 6th luckiest team, the Buffalo Bills. The Titans have been the second unluckiest team through 2 weeks. Just so you know, you can see it in the app. I am also on the Titans this week. Dr. Nick, what else we got?
Yeah, 7 luck games this weekend, and we hit a 10-1 luck bet on the show last week.
10-1 luck bet last week.
So Chad, we're gonna start big again. Let's go with an anytime touchdown bet in the Denver Broncos Tampa Bay Buccaneers game. I'm gonna take tight end Greg Dulcich for an anytime touchdown at plus 650. Throw a quarter unit on it. Don't go crazy. The Broncos, as you mentioned, one of the largest, unluckiest teams versus their opponent this week in our luck rankings database. So we like the Broncos to cover here. Denver has been the 4th most unlucky offense this year, while Tampa Bay has been the 3rd most lucky defense. So that should set up well for Denver to maybe have some more scoring than expectation. And this is a good matchup as well. Tampa Bay last year gave up the 2nd most yards and the 3rd most touchdowns to the tight end position. The Bucs play 85% zone, which is great for Dulcich because he's been much better versus zone than man. And Dulcich has had 11 targets on 61 routes through 2 weeks.
All right, by the way, that 10-1 bet last week, I believe that was Billy Ward on Cowboys Saints, highest scoring game of the day, which was the 2nd week in a row he had hit that bet. Nick, what's the second luck play?
Well, I'm going to disagree a little on Detroit, Arizona here. I'm going to take Detroit's team total over 27.5 at even money. Detroit has the highest, what we call luck team total of the week. So we expect them to outperform their total by the most. And Detroit has been the 2nd most unlucky offense, while Arizona has been the luckiest defense in the NFL. And despite all that, Detroit's offense, their average expected score has been 34 points per game so far this year. That's their expectation. That's not what they've done. So I know they've been run heavy, but they've still been expecting to score a lot, right? Only 1 touchdown in the red zone versus Tampa Bay last week. That can't continue. They'll have more red zone scoring for sure if they keep that up. And then Arizona's defense has given up an average expected score of 34.6 points per game. So not very good either. I know they only gave up 10 to the Rams, but the Rams actually got a lot of good field position and didn't do anything with it either. And I do think this Arizona offense can keep pace to make this a potential shootout, forcing Detroit to go over here.
Well, listen, we can all be winners, make it 30-21, and we come in the under and we go over the 27.5. All right, what's number 3? And by the way, I mentioned earlier when Simon was talking about DJ Moore, we were going to get back to a correlated bet with Caleb Williams. This is the payoff for those who have been watching. Let's do it.
The correlation here is Caleb Williams to go over 30.5 attempts. You can get that at -115. With the Colts being the unlucky team here with a luck gap of 56.5%, that means it's more likely, we think, for the Colts to cover based off our luck rankings data, which could mean a more pass-heavy game script for Chicago Bears. The Colts also play at the fastest pace in the NFL, 5 seconds per play faster than the Bears' first 2 opponents on average. The Bears also play fast. Offensive coordinator Shane Waldron runs a top 3 no-huddle offense and a top 5 pace the last 3 years when he was with Seattle. And finally, the Bet What Happens Live model that we use for our live betting is showing closer to 34 passing attempts for Caleb Williams. And speaking of Bet What Happens Live, I'm going to have Simon join me for today's 4 p.m. slate, Eastern slate for Bet What Happens Live.
I was going to say, everyone should go watch Dr. Nick on Bet What Happens Live. It might be the most ROI positive show that we do at the Action Network. So by the way, if you were scoring at home, that's 2 standard deviations. That's ROI positive. This is a special show. Speaking of special, we got some Sunday Night Football tonight, and that is special because Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs are playing the Atlanta Falcons. This line has moved from 4.5 down to 4, down to 3.5. It is now Chiefs -3. Is this the breaking point? Is this when you want to start betting on Patrick Mahomes? We're going to talk all about it. Let's go, Sean Koerner.
Kick it off with a very gross prop, but it's going to be a fun one to sweat. It's Kirk Cousins under a half rushing yard. You can get it at -135. But he only cleared this in 4 of 8 games last year when he was perfectly healthy. Now he's a year older, 36, and coming off the Achilles tear last year, which he's clearly, favoring his right plant foot in the pocket. He's not going back as much on his drop back. He's really not getting outside the pocket at all. Last year, he only scrambled less than 1% of his dropbacks. This year, he does have 1 scramble in his 59 dropbacks, and I watched it. It was a play where, he was looking to throw. He realized he was about to get sacked, and he just kind of like fell forward for 1 yard. It was almost an accident. And then later in the game, he kneeled twice to go under this prop. So I think this is a prop even he doesn't want to clear. And this could correlate with some of our other bets on this. If Atlanta does win this game, if he does accidentally get a yard, he's probably going to kneel it once or twice to get back under this. So I think we have a lot of outs for this to stay under. So love Kirk Cousins to stay under a half rushing yard here.
Now you're just forcing me to do something even scarier than I would like to do. Simon, talk to me.
Here we go, Chad. I got a gross bet, but fear not, people. I'm 2-0 on Sunday nights this year. Don't let no board, throw you off. I don't know why we're not tracking these. We're still giving them out, but we're not tracking them. But
talk to Gifford. I've asked him the same question. We can
it's
revisit.
Ridiculous. Because if we lose these, I get yelled at just the same. I'm going with a gross one in Atlanta +3, Chad. And I tried to find some trends from our guy Evan. Don't go look at Evan's page on trends on this game, okay? This is not where you want to go with the Atlanta team, but I did find one. There's been 8 teams in Super Bowl history, Chad, to go for the three-peat. They are 13 games below 500 against the spread in that 3rd season, and no teams that will ever have gone 3-1 against the spread or better. So we have historical data that it's just hard to get back, right? It's hard for these teams to get up when they've already won 2 Super Bowls in a row. And we've seen it with this Chiefs team this season. They don't look the same, right? And that's the same as last year. It took them, 5 months, Chad, to kind of figure out who they were last year. I think we have the same thing with this season with this Chiefs team. Their offense has gone young. Travis Kelce, he is the 29th tight end right now of fantasy football. He just is in a different stage of his career. So the offense has changed. And now they've lost Isaiah Pacheco. And now they don't know who their left tackle is. It's just a different team than we're used to with this Chiefs team. It's not this slam dunk, high-powered offense. And, to me, this Atlanta team, they kind of know who they are right now. And I think there are ways for them to attack this Chiefs team, mainly through the run and Bijan Robinson. So I love this team for this matchup for Atlanta. And another thing I know you love to look at, Chad, this number opened at 4.5. We did our show Sunday night. It ticked down to 3.5 by Monday night. And what have you seen on our app? 75% of the bets, 75% of the money, all in this Chiefs team. Some books are saying it's 5-1, 6-1, the amount of bets and tickets right now on this Chiefs team to Atlanta, but this number keeps going down. So it's just professional money coming in back in this Atlanta team. So obviously we wanted to go up to 3.5. I don't think it gets there, right? I don't think the public is going to move this number enough to get us back to 3.5. So I'm going to grab the 3 now and, play the numbers here and just know that this Chiefs team, they are beatable right now. Mahomes is not Mr. Untouchable. This Atlanta team's been playing well. So I'll take them +3 at home Sunday night.
Yeah, people are betting the logo here. They're not betting the players that are on the field. And what we did see out of the Falcons last week, and yes, it'll be a short week, but they'll be at home when they beat the Eagles, is Bijan Robinson in that rushing game was fantastic. And that's because the right side of their line from the center out, they are the most dominant trio of linemen against the run in the NFL. The Chiefs, while they get great pressure, they are terrible against the run. So this is a great opportunity for the Falcons to keep the ball on the ground and beat up on a Chiefs team defensively that has been horrible against the run. Raybon, let's do it.
Rolling with the under 46.5 in this one. Simon kind of hit on it. This Chiefs offense is not really the same one that we think of when we think of the Chiefs offense. Patrick Mahomes this year has the second lowest average depth of target in the entire NFL at 5.1. They're relying purely on yards after the catch. And it makes sense. Rashee Rice is very good at that. I mean, Kelsey, you would think, but what that's going to do when you have just a guy that's throwing, he's also throwing in 2.6 seconds, which would be the quickest of his career by far. That's just going to lead to long drives. And Atlanta, on the other side, what do they want to do? They want to run the ball. And I don't think they're going to have as much success. Cousins completed 12 balls for about $180 to his receivers last week, his wide receivers. Kansas City has one of the best cornerback groups in the league. So I think Cousins is going to have to stay inside the numbers, more Kyle Pitts, more 2 tight end, and hand the ball to Bijan. So I think both of these teams are just not going to be as interested in pushing it down the field. The Chiefs, they do have Worthy, but even Worthy's average targets under 10. Justin Watson, Sean's boy, his average up to targets under 10. Like, these guys are supposed to be deep threats, and they're getting targeted underneath too. So they just benched Kingsley Suamataia, their left tackle. I mean, they're so like I don't think they have any interest in going down the field. P. Ryan, the pass protected back, just got there a few weeks ago. So it's really, I think it's going to be an underneath type of game for the Chiefs, and it's going to be a run heavy game for as long as they can for the Falcons. And we know these primetime unders since 2019, 160, 106, and 3, 60%. Give me under 46.5 Falcons, Chiefs.
Yeah, look, I'm already on the Falcons at 3.5. I love the under here, but I'm crazy. I'm not doing justice to our fans or our perfect code to get the Action Pro subscription for $20 off if I don't go with Koerner and Kirk Cousins under half a yard and his prop, because the guy is so good. Not even I can mush Koerner today. By the way, if you want to parlay all of these picks, you want to parlay Kirk Cousins, you want to parlay the Falcons, you want to parlay the game total, put them all in a Sunday night SGP, that's going to pay out at about plus 550. This has been Convince Me. We're the only show that is 2 standard deviations better than every other pregame show in existence. Stick around for the ROI Positive Touchdown Show next.
Thank you, Chad, and welcome to the Touchdown Show for Week 3. I'm Gilles Gallant with the Action Network, along with Brian Matthews, a.k.a. the BMAT. Each week, we cover the anytime touchdown market in the NFL. We're going to have best bets for the 1 p.m. Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern games. We're going to have some touchdown parlays. We'll preview Sunday Night Football between the Falcons and Chiefs. Check out the touchdown odds for primetime. We'll also have a special guest from the betting community give us their best anytime touchdown bet for Sunday. This week, it's Matt Modi, a.k.a. Jedi Modi, on X and Twitter. But before we start, B-Matt, I have to ask you, because touchdowns in general are down. Red zone efficiency is also down. And one of the big topics this week was another reason to penalize the defense. Mel Kiper brings up about how they wanted to ban too high safety. And you've got football pedigree in your blood. You kind of know about Tampa 2 defense. Do you think that's a dumb idea? I think it's a dumb idea, but I feel like that was the general response to it. What is your thoughts on the NFL if they were to ban too high safety?
Yeah, it's moronic. You're not going to ban a too high safety look. It's a standard defense that has been in the NFL for a long time. Teams have been running this. This is nothing new. Monty Giffen, kind of created this with the Tampa 2 back a long time ago. But we're starting to outlaw every single advantage that any side has. So we can't do a normal kickoff. We can't do a hip drop tackle. So everything now is changing. But because you don't have enough offense, you want to outlaw the too high safety look. Find a way to beat it. Scheme up a way that you can get around it. So look, I just am in the category of we can't change too much about football before we actually lose football. So
that's what I was about to say. It's not going to be football anymore.
Yeah,
and look, like the Eagles, tush push. They talked about banning that too. At what point do we have to just give credit to the offense for being ingenious and thinking of another way to exploit the defense? Why do we have to kind of always think of another way to penalize the defense and take away tools that they have to be able to withstand certain things like that? I just find that to be over the top. So anyway, we won't talk about that anymore. What we want is touchdowns.
Yes.
And we think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns here for this Sunday for week 3. So here's how it works. The show, we'll start off with our best touchdown bets with the lowest odds, then we'll work our way up, and then we're going to unleash our spicy bets. B-Matt and I both have some picks over 10-1. That's going to be coming near the end of the show. So, B-Matt, let's start off with our best bets of the week. I'm going immediately to your Cleveland Browns playing the New York Giants today, and I'm looking right at their rushing attack. I like D'Onta Foreman at plus 175 to score a touchdown against the Giants today. D'Onta Foreman, pretty aggressive runner, and I think that's what the Browns are looking for because he started for the Browns in week 2, had that opening series drive. He was out there in the fourth quarter for closing time, saw 2 red zone carries in week 2, led the team with 14 carries. Now, those 2 red zone carries, Deshaun Watson ended up punching it in there at the end, but Jerome Ford, and you could probably even comment about this a little bit as just being a Browns fan. We both like Jerome Ford, but he's just not as physical as D'Onta Foreman and tends to be used more in the passing down scenarios. Yeah. And Foreman, even last year, he just has that nose for the end zone. I mean, even with the Bears last year, he had 3 touchdowns in 4 games, averaged almost 20 carries a game before he got hurt. The Browns O-line, they're going to have Jedrick Wills and Jack Conklin back today. Look, it's a great matchup, but if I'm planting my flag on the Browns backfield, I'm team Foreman, not Ford. So I think it's going to be Foreman today who scores a touchdown against the Giants. B-Matt, so before we talk about your best bet, what do you think about the D'Onta Foreman, Jerome Ford backfield, and who do you think is probably the leader in the clubhouse?
Yeah, no, I may have already, gotten a Foreman touchdown on a play already. So you and I are aligned here. I just think that with the Browns and Kevin Stefanski's blueprint, it's always the bigger back. They like to have that kind of dynamic of having the early down thumper, and then bringing in Jerome Ford for kind of that passing down work and some carries. So it just, when the Browns get close to the goal line, what they want to do is run the ball. And now you look, it's not like D'Onta Foreman, didn't play week 1, didn't get any snaps. He just was hurt. So he was inactive. So we can't look back at week 1 and say, well, he didn't get any carries. All we can do is look at week 2 and said he was the first one to get carries. He was the one that closed out the game, and he got the red zone carries. So if you look at all 3 of those factors, I really like Foreman. I think it's a great pick.
He checks a lot of boxes for us this week. So my first pick of week 3 is D'Onta Foreman. B-Matt, what is your best bet of week 3?
This guy's got to score finally, right? All right, I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk, anytime touchdown at plus 130. So it's a dream matchup against the Rams, and it's also a dream in the sense that the 49ers are going to be without Deebo Samuel and George Kittle today. So, yes, Ayuk has had a slow start to the season. He was also holding out, due to a contract issue and wasn't in camp with his team. So, you expect him to be a little bit out of shape. But look, they didn't re-sign him to a long-term, big deal just to have him come in there and catch a few passes. They're going to need him today. They're going to rely on him. He's had 2 red zone targets in each of the first 2 weeks.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, 4 red zone targets without a touchdown. So if I'm, when you look at volume is king, it's hard to beat 4 red zone targets in 2 games. And now they're missing, arguably their 2 best playmakers outside of Christian McCaffrey, who's also out too. And you say, oh, who else is there? So look, I'm expecting a big Brandon Ayuk game. I think he gets his first touchdown, and I'm going to run with it at plus 130.
Yeah, I mean, and the one thing I would even clarify too, of those 4 red zone targets, 2 of them were end zone targets. Like he
Yes,
should have had a
yes.
touchdown in week 1 against the
Yep.
Jets. So, and week 2 just didn't work out. It wasn't probably the best pass from Brock Purdy, but still, again,
Yeah.
it's the only guy left. I mean, unless you want to look at Jawan Jennings around like plus 220, plus 230, or go even further down the line on, you know, Chris Conley or Ronnie Bell, Brandon Ayuk is going to get the work today. And at plus 130, I think it's a pretty good price for a wide receiver 1 against the Vikings, or rather, against the Rams secondary, rather, that I think could be exploited. So, all right. So he's on Brandon Ayuk at plus 130. I'm on Deontay Foreman for our best bets to start off the touchdown show of week 3. Now, before we talk about Sunday Night Football, I have to mention that Taylor Swift's boyfriend is going to be playing tonight for the Kansas City Chiefs against the Atlanta Falcons. And if you're a Swiftie, you should check out this contest from Action Network to win a free trip to see Taylor Swift in concert. Take a look.
Are you or someone you know tuning into Sunday Night Football this week hoping to catch a glimpse of Taylor cheering on Travis? What if I told you you could watch the game and have a chance to win Eras Tour tickets? All you have to do is play Tix Pick 6, and the best part, it's free. This week, you'll decide whether or not you think Taylor will be featured in the Sunday Night Football intro. And you'll guess how often she'll be referenced during the first quarter. Then it's just 4 questions about the game itself, designed to teach you the basics of sports betting, like how many total points will be scored in the game, or will Travis score a touchdown? You earn points for every right answer, and those points turn into entries into the grand prize drawing. You can earn up to 13 points a week. And if you don't know anything about sports betting, that's okay. I explain everything in a weekly article previewing the game. You must be 21 plus and in the US to enter. Check out tixpick6.actionnetwork.com to play.
All right, let's look now at Sunday Night Football and the anytime touchdown odds. Chiefs Falcons got an over-under of 46.5. And B-Matt, right off the top, you see Bijan Robinson at minus odds at minus 130. And Carson Steele, rookie, at plus 130 now that Isaiah Pacheco is out. Then your guy, Rashee Rice, who you hit last week, he's at plus 135. Followed by, again, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, Travis Kelce, at plus 140. And you got Xavier Worthy at plus 180. Then you start to see a flood of Falcons. You see Drake London at plus 210, Kyle Pitts at plus 230, Darnell Mooney around plus 320, Tyler Algier at plus 360. And don't forget about the passing back for the Chiefs, Samaje Perine at plus 300. Looking at this game, B-Matt, I wanted to do a same game parlay for this game because one thing, again, on the Chiefs side, as usual, there's that tax or premium that you have to look at with Chiefs touchdown scorers. So from a single bet standpoint, it's hard to find a little bit of value. But when looking at this, what I did is I took Rashee Rice because you hit him last week. And part of the reason why I put Rashee Rice as one of the legs for this parlay, Rice has just been a zone killer, and Falcons run zone at a top 5 rate. He scored a touchdown last week on a zone coverage route. And then I wanted to pair Rashee Rice with your guy from USC, Drake London, at plus 210. He got that touchdown against the Eagles. 3 red zone targets so far, caught the game-winning touchdown. But with this one, though, the third leg, so Rashee Rice and Drake London are going to be the first 2 legs of the same game parlay. And I wanted to know what you thought if we added Samaje Perine to that. Because Perine, I know he's a little bit of a wild card just coming over, but I don't know if you looked at Carson Steele and his body of work. He doesn't really catch passes at all. That wasn't really his MO in college. Yeah. So right now, I'm looking at a same game parlay of Rashee Rice, Drake London, and Samaje Perine at 26-1. You are kind of the touchdown parlay guy, somebody who I look to see kind of what you're doing and for certain primetime games. What do you think of this trio coming up to 26-1 for a same game parlay?
I actually love Samaje Perine. I think the attention, and rightfully so, is going to be focused on Carson Steele. But like you said, you know, it's oftentimes when the Chiefs get down in the red zone, and specifically inside the 10, it's not always just this cut and dry, you know, run the ball straight forward, like, dive or whatever it is. It's, they're getting creative. They're looking ways to get guys like Jerick McKinnon last year. It
that's
seemed
exactly
like
what I was going to point to.
Scoring on those quick hit touchdown passes. So I actually really like this. And Samaje Perine's got a special place since he helped me cash a nice same game parlay in week 1.
Well, and Rashee Rice, he hit for you last week. So I think of the 3.
Yeah, it's a good line.
He feels real good. How do you feel about Drake London now, though? Again, somebody who's led in red zone targets in each of the last 2 years for the Falcons, but now having a semi-competent quarterback in Kirk Cousins. Thinking about the matchup against McDuffie, where his odds are around plus 210. How do you feel about Drake London in this matchup?
Well, look, Drake's kind of a different type of receiver. I mean, he's 6'5". He's quick too. So you saw the route he ran, on the touchdown pass to win the game. He's got a unique skill set. The problem was the first 2 weeks, just Kirk Cousins looked awful. And a lot of that too, the first week, TJ Watt had established permanent residency in their backfield. So, he wasn't getting many clean looks. So it was very nice, though, to see Drake London start to get involved in that passing game. It took a little bit, but very encouraged by that. And he is their alpha playmaker. So I think it's definitely going to play into Cousins' favor if he gets on the ball a little bit more.
All right, so we're going to do a same game parlay for Sunday Night Football. Let's recap this again. We're going to take Rashee Rice for an anytime touchdown, Drake London for an anytime touchdown, and then finally Samaje Perine for an anytime touchdown. We'll put a little pizza bet on that, like 0.1 of a unit. And the parlay comes out to about 26-1 at FanDuel. So I go check that out if you want to tail that one. All right, let's move on to now, B-Matt, another best bet for the Sunday slate. Looking at the 5 p.m. games, why don't you get us started? What is your second best bet of week 3?
All right, so I'm going with a rookie here, and I'm going to bet my medium pick is going to be Brock Bowers anytime touchdown at plus 240. I'm a little bummed it opened at plus 320. So, as we got closer to game time, it seems like people started to pick up a little bit of steam on Brock Bowers, but the matchup's brilliant. They're playing against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are the only team in the NFL to surrender multiple scores to opposing tight ends. And when you look at Brock Bowers, they drafted him high in the first round for a reason, and they have rewarded him by giving him the ball. So he had a terrible matchup last week against the Baltimore Ravens. He still finished with 9 receptions for 98 yards and helped them with the upset win. So the only thing that he didn't do or hasn't done yet this season is score a touchdown. And with that kind of volume against a team that has already given up multiple scores to the tight end position, I'm going to bank on Brock Bowers scoring his first touchdown at plus 240.
When you're able to put up like 9 catches on Roquan Smith and that defense, that opens my eyes as far as ability goes. And you looked pretty much exactly how he looked on the field when he was with Georgia. Like, you know what I mean? Just so big and so fast. And you mentioned it about the touchdown steaming of the odds, because when we initially talked about this on Wednesday and even parts of Thursday, he's around plus 320, plus 330, and just the momentum keeps coming for Brock Bowers. So the fact that we're still even able to get it over plus 200, like I imagine if he scores a touchdown this week, depending on the matchup, you might not see him over plus 200 again because of the hype train and just how great he has looked through 2 weeks in the NFL with the Raiders. So Brock Bowers is your second best bet for week 3. I'm looking at a tight end as well, a tight end who has yet to score a touchdown this season. And I'm going right to the Vikings-Texans matchup, but I'm going to be taking Dalton Schultz at plus 330 against the Vikings to score a touchdown today. Now, again, mentioned he hasn't been used much through 2 games, but has been a pretty huge target for CJ Stroud in the end zone. Last year, he was second on the team in red zone targets, had 4 touchdowns. And I bring up a lot about man defenses and zone coverage defenses. The Vikings play zone at a top 6 rate in the NFL through 2 games, and pretty much every receiver, including Schultz, the whole passing attack for the Texans has good metrics versus zone. That's probably thanks to CJ Stroud. But Schultz, most of his metrics as far as yards per route run, ADOT, first target read, all that good stuff that we like to look at for touchdown props, he rates better against zone coverage than man coverage for those metrics. And then part of the reason, too, why I was like on George Kittle for 2 touchdowns last week, and he only got 1, but part of the reason why is because those type of tight ends have pretty good matchups against the Vikings secondary. Very effective for Kittle in week 2. He had 7 catches and a touchdown. The Vikings as well. Also, only one of 6 teams so far yet to allow a touchdown to a wide receiver in 2024. So I found that to be really interesting based on the fact that they played the Niners last week, and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel weren't able to get into the end zone on that defense. And back up now, Brevin Jordan, he's out for the season now. He has a torn ACL. So if Joe Mixon is dinged up and he's missing the game, which he's now been ruled out, and Brevin Jordan is out, there's just more opportunity, I think, for Schultz. So at plus 330, that is who I like to score a touchdown against the Vikings. But I wanted to ask you before we bring on our special guest, what do you think of this Texans-Vikings matchup? Do you think we're going to see a lot of scoring in this? Is there anybody else that you might be considering for a touchdown in that game?
Yeah, I don't want to, tip my hand, but I do have someone from that game in my spicy.
If it's in the
pick.
spicy, we'll wait on that
Yeah,
one.
we'll hold off. So no, I think it should be a good game. I don't think, I think it might go under. I'm not an unders better, but I think this game might go under by a little bit. Just missing some key pieces here. But yeah, so I'm not going to tease it too much. We'll talk about that soon.
All right, so we got a pair of tight ends for our second best bet of week 3. I'm on Dalton Schultz at plus 330. He is on Brock Bowers at plus 240. All right, it's time now. Let's bring in our special guest for the touchdown show for week 3, Matt Modi. And we are back with the touchdown show, and we have a special guest for week 3. It's the guy that I've been following for a while, loves to bet touchdowns. It is Matt Modi, a.k.a. Jedi Modi on X and Twitter. Matt, welcome to the touchdown show.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you for having me. It's I feel honored to be a welcome guest here.
Well, we've been following you for a while. We love the bets and the analysis that you have. And one of the things that I saw in your Twitter bio or X bio is you feel that you are a tormented Philly fan. And I just wanted to ask before we get to what your anytime touchdown bet is that how are you feeling about the Eagles now after week 2? Give us a state of the union about Eagles fandom right now, because you very well could be 2-0. I just kind of want to know, like, is the sky falling for an Eagles fan right
now? I don't think the sky's falling. I think that it's a weird thing where I was always kind of skeptical coming into the year, because like in my general football ethos, if a team keeps their head coach but has 2 new coordinators, and not because those coordinators left for like head coaching jobs, like they fired their offensive and defensive coordinator, that's like a kiss of death. Like we've seen that time and time again, where it's like a last ditch effort. And so I was never a Sirianni guy. Everybody's up in arms about the third down call past the Saquon Barkley. I was cool with that. I mean, you trust him to catch the ball. He probably catches that 99 times out of 100.
Agreed.
I thought the bigger issue was not going for it on 4th down. And then the biggest issue was their defense was pretending like there was 30 seconds left on the clock instead of like a minute 42. So I think their offense will be fine. I'm worried about their defense. We were told Vic Fangio was supposed to bring competency. Right now, they're like the second worst defense in the NFL, according to the DVOA, with the worst rush defense, which like their defensive line is supposed to be everything. So I could go on for another hour about it. But overall state of the union, I think they're about in line with my expectations. I thought they're going to be like a 10-win team if things broke right. So they're kind of in line with my expectations. And I'm really not a Sirianni guy. So him kind of making a fool of himself and then after the fact doubling down on that, to me, that's not really a surprise.
Well, I mean, even with the loss, you're still favored to win the NFC East. Yeah. And again, like if you get to the dance, the type of team that could probably still make some noise against pretty much any opponent in the NFC. But you have a touchdown bet from an AFC team this week. What is your best anytime touchdown bet for week 3, Matt?
Yeah. So I'm going to go with Tony Pollard. Currently, last I checked, best offered at plus 115 odds at DraftKings. I know as you as a Cowboys fan probably are out of the Tony Pollard touchdown business. But I think he's looked great this year. And I really, the reason why I like this for a touchdown play, I also like his yards, which I know this isn't a yard show, but just to give that a shout out. I think the biggest reason why I like Tony Pollard is, heading into the year, and it seems like a lot of people thought this was going to be a 50-50 split with him and Tajay Spears. But even before Spears got banged up in week 2, that really hasn't been the case. Tony Pollard's taken 65% of the running back snaps. He's taken 61% of the team's rushing attempts. That's the 11th highest percent of a team's rush attempts in the NFL. And, Will Levis likes to scoot, and that does include those rush attempts as well. So it's even higher if you just look at the running back rush attempts. He's gotten the 4th most running back targets, so he could score through the air. He's a good receiver. The 4th most targets tied with Bijan Robinson with 10. He's got the 10th most rush attempts with 33. And the most important thing here is that he gets most of the red zone work. Now, the Titans haven't run a ton of plays in the opposing team's red zone. That's the Will Levis effect. When you throw the ball backwards in the red zone, generally that limits the amount of work that you get. But majority of the running back work has gone to Tony Pollard. 3 of the 4 red zone carries, the only red zone target from a running back has gone to Tony Pollard. And I think we're getting a little bit of a discount because of the performance we saw from the Packers defense last week. If you look at the scoreboard, they shut down the Colts offense, but Jonathan Taylor, he didn't score. He ran for 100 yards, over 100 yards on 12 carries. Right now, the Packers have the 24th ranked rush defense according to DVOA, 27th according to PFF. They've allowed the 6th highest yards per carry. And what I think is a really good stat for Tony Pollard specifically, they've allowed the 2nd highest percent of rush attempts against them go for at least 15 yards. And that's kind of what you're relying on with Tony Pollard. It's not necessarily volume, but it's chunk plays. And then I do think that he gets the red zone work. So, after shutting down the Colts last week, and after Will Levis having just multiple back-breaking turnovers, I think that the Titans are going to play it safe, run the ball as often as they can, and I think they're going to have success doing so. So that's kind of what led me to Tony Pollard.
Well, they definitely invested in him. I think that was the one thing too, is that after having like over 60 red zone carries last year with Dallas, just wasn't very efficient in the red zone, but has looked spry. And we talked about this off air where maybe he wasn't fully recovered from that ankle injury from the year prior, starting to look a little bit more fresh in a Titans uniform. And Jonathan Taylor, I'm glad you brought that up, because last week he was like one of the most bet touchdown scorers last week based on a lot of this kind of analysis where the Packers, their defense, really the weakness is in the run attack, right? So Tony Pollard, I love this pick. Tony Pollard around plus 110 to plus 115 right now at DraftKings. Now, Matt, before we get you out of here, can you please tell us, where can we find more of your content? Do you have any shows going for Sunday? Tell us a little bit more about that before you go.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, so you can find me, as you mentioned, on Twitter/X at Jedi Modi. It's also the name of my YouTube channel, Jedi Modi Sports Network on YouTube. I'm live at 5 p.m. Eastern every Monday, Thursday before primetime games, and then also at 11 a.m. on Sundays, but obviously going through the entire slate. Also, sports betting writer for Newsweek. So anything that doesn't make it on YouTube, I'll write articles for Newsweek. So all that you can find on X. I'll post it at Jedi Modi.
All right, so follow Matt at Jedi Modi. Matt, good luck. He's got Tony Pollard for an anytime touchdown. We're going to throw that on a parlay at the end of the show. Good luck today, Matt.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
And we are back for the Touchdown Show. Thank you, Matt Modi, for coming on the show this week. B-Matt, let's get right into the spicy touchdown bets here, because this week I found it actually easier, in my opinion, to pick maybe some long shot bets than I was to be able to pick our best bets. I still like our best bets, but I just found there was some really tasty odds for spicy touchdown bets this week. So B-Matt, why don't you do the honors? What are your spicy touchdown bets for week 3?
So I'm going to go right back to the first touchdown scorer market. I had some success with it last year. And so the first one, I'm going to go with the guy who, when you're betting a wide receiver to score, you like to sometimes look at the due factor. And this guy is very due. I'm going to go Chris Olave, first touchdown score. It's plus 1,000. Look, this is a guy, this offense is humming. Clint Kubiak has them rolling. I think they've scored last week, or I think they scored points on every single offensive possession. The Saints have looked incredible offensively through the first 2 weeks. They've got a great matchup, but they've also dominated the scoreboard in both of their games. And I'm sorry, Gilles, I know that one of those came at the expense of your Cowboys, but they really didn't need Olave. Like the first week, they didn't need him much. Last week, he had a pretty good game. Not, no touchdowns, but look, I just think this is a spot where I think this game should have a lot of points. I think Olave, Rashid Shaheed has been fantastic, a couple of deep touchdowns, but I just think this is the week where Chris Olave scores, and I just get the feeling he's scoring first. So we're going to go ahead and put a quarter of a unit on this. And then what we're going to do, take another quarter of a unit, and we're going to go with Stephon Diggs, first touchdown scorer. So this wide receiver, there's so much talent in this Texans wide receiver core between Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, and Tank Dell. It's like, who do you, how do you keep them all happy? Who do you get the ball to? So, Stephon Diggs had 3 red zone targets in week 1, 2 touchdowns. And last week, Nico Collins had another big game. I just think this is one of those games where they're going to need Stephon Diggs to move the sticks. And when they get in the red zone, he's a guy where, look, he's sure-handed. And I think they're going to look his way. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores the first touchdown. So I'm going to go quarter unit on both to score the first touchdown, both at plus 1,000.
I like these bets. And the one thing I like about Olave, more not about the due factor, but just historically, even with Derek Carr last year, how much more targeted he was in comparison to whoever the wide receiver 2 was in the offense, whether it was Michael Thomas, A.T. Perry, Rashid Shaheed. And Rashid Shaheed, again, has been fantastic through 2 games.
Yep.
but doesn't get as much volume as Olave. So a lot of it, both of those touchdowns that he scored were like 70-yard bombs against Dallas and Carolina. And not to say that he can't do that again. And in fact, right now he's around plus 250 or 225 to score. I wouldn't be mad if you wanted to bet on Rashid Shaheed again for an anytime touchdown. But I think you made a good point about Olave and just how effective he actually is as a wide receiver. I think Derek Carr is going to look for him. So I love that pick. But Stephon Diggs, I think you made a good point as well about how do you keep all these guys happy. Who's the first guy that would probably go nuclear if he didn't get targets? It would definitely be Stephon Diggs. So if you want to keep the wide receiver room happy, I think Stephon Diggs needs to keep being fed. So I love that angle as well. So he is on Chris Olave, first touchdown score at 10-1, and Stephon Diggs, first touchdown score also at 10-1. All right, so here are my spicy bets this week, BMAP.
We got
first pick. I went right to the Ravens versus Cowboys, and the second bet is for the Rams versus 49ers. So the first one, we're going to take Zay Flowers for 2 touchdowns. I bet it at 16-1. I'm seeing it right now at FanDuel around 18-1 as well. So again, some extra value there. And then the other bet that I'm going to take, dude, I'm taking Blake Corum, backup running back for the Rams, to score an anytime touchdown at 11-1. I technically bet it at 12-1. It's still at 11-1 right now. Okay, so let's talk about Flowers, because I almost wanted to take Mark Andrews at 23-1 for 2 touchdowns just to be stubborn and be team Mark Andrews, but we can't overlook the emergence of Flowers now, man. Like how involved he is in the red zone. He should have had a touchdown in week 1. He got one in week 2. He's got 22 targets through 2 games. I mean, if you look at his pace last year, he had double-digit targets in over half of the games that he played. 22 targets is 4th right now total in the NFL for any pass catcher. So Zay Flowers, I think, could have a big game against the Cowboys today, given how shifty he is and how much they move him around the line of scrimmage. Now, Blake Corum, here's the case for Blake Corum. Because I'm not going to try to tell you that Kyren Williams isn't the lead back. He's obviously the lead back for the Rams. But Blake Corum saw 8 carries last week in garbage time. And this one could be like a potentially another blowout because the Rams have so many injuries offensively. I think Corum may need to rotate it in more because Kyren Williams, like you can't run him 4 downs every series. Like you have to rotate somebody in. And we know Blake Corum's touchdown pedigree when he was in college at Michigan. I mean, he legit scored a touchdown in every game in his senior season and all but one game in his junior year. The only game he didn't score is the one he got hurt in. So he obviously knows how to get to the end zone and look pretty spry in the second half of that blowout game against the Cardinals. Now, this Niners defense, obviously, they're a tougher defense. But again, if we get to the fourth quarter and they're starting to see and it's a 20-point game and, you know, they don't really care if they score that touchdown, they might just let Corum walk in and just kind of to get the game over with so people can stop getting hurt on both sides of the ball. Right now, our own Sean Koerner, who does the Action Pro player prop projections, he has fair odds for Blake Corum around plus 800, which equates to about a 3.8% edge for anytime touchdown scores. So Blake Corum at 11-1. I'm going to put a quarter unit on that. And I'm going to take Zay Flowers for 2 touchdowns at 16-1 for a quarter unit.
Love it.
BMAT, so you obviously you follow a ton of college football. You probably watched some of that Michigan game yesterday against USC. Blake Corum. Well, I wasn't trying to bring up the loss. I was just more trying to talk about, trying to relate it and localize it for us here. Blake Corum, again, do you think he could get some touches in this backfield given the challenges and how much Kyren Williams is being involved in the offense?
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, they're going to have to spill Kyren Williams at some point. And I think Kyren is clearly going to be the focal point of this offense. So, you know, and when you're talking about a San Francisco defense, when, you know, you're in a goal-to-go situation, you know, a big bruising back like Corum is with some fresh legs, wouldn't hurt to bring in. You know, Kyren takes him down the field and, you know, Corum's got some fresh legs to punch one in. But yeah, no, I like the angle. And 2, you're kind of protected, like you said, by the blowout, route. So if San Francisco does put it on him, you say, all right, well, he should get some more carries then, right?
Well, I mean, they don't want to make Kyren Williams have to go on IR again. I think they are out of IR spots at this point, which is why Cooper Kupp, I don't think, is on there as well. So those are our spicy picks. I'm on Blake Corum anytime touchdown, Zay Flowers for 2 touchdowns. BMAT is on Chris Olave first touchdown and Stephon Diggs for a first touchdown. All right, BMAT, I want to get out of here, but before we do, let's do the 180 challenge. I want to do a parlay, one more challenge, one more parlay before we get out of here. So what the 180 challenge is each week for $10, we do a parlay of 18 to 1 or better. We just got to hit one for the entire year, and we're playing with house money. So today, I think what we'll have to do is we take Matt Modai's pick. He gave out Tony Pollard at around plus 110, plus 115. So we're going to use that as one of the legs. But the more I thought about this parlay, B-Matt, I was thinking back to week 1, Bobby Stanley, who gave out Chuba Hubbard. I was thinking last week to Monotone Football, Stu, he gave out Justin Fields. I think we need to do a touchdown show guest redemption parlay, or a yesterlay, I think you called it. Yeah, so we're going to put Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, and Justin Fields, all three parlayed together, comes out to around 21 to 1 at DraftKings. So obviously we'll put Pollard on as Matt for our guest, but I mean, Hubbard's got a pretty good matchup in week 2 versus week 3 rather. And I mean, the one thing I just want to kind of correct here, look, Andy Dalton, let's just not pretend like he's just going to throw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns here. He's going to need run support. This is still Andy Dalton we're talking about here. I think Chuba Hubbard has a great chance to score today. And Fields, I'm probably just being stubborn with it. But again, 22 carries through 2 games. I can't ignore what I've seen from Najee Harris. Like, he pretty much falls over from any sign of contact. So I mean, I feel like we got to pair these 3 together, and we are going to redeem our guest picks in 1 week. So that is Tony Pollard, Chuba Hubbard, and Justin Fields. All 3 parlayed together comes out to 21 to 1 at DraftKings. All right, B-Matt, that's all for us today. 4 picks from me, 4 picks for you. We got some touchdown parlays on deck. I want to remind everybody that the Touchdown Show will be back here for week 4 on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, live right after Convince Me during the Action Network Power Hour. And if you missed the show and want to get our picks, download the Action app. All of our touchdown bets are tracked there. You can get them as soon as we bet them with pick notifications. Thank you again for joining us for the Touchdown Show for week 3. Bon chance.